Welcome to Believe in Chargers, part of the Believe Network. Matt Money Smith here, joined by, and I don't know, man. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this free agency thing, but fullbacks, they are flying. I mean, fullbacks getting paid. They are moving around the country. Everybody is lining up to sign the next fullback. The great. We miss the fullback in the NFL, and perhaps Jim Harbaugh will bring one back sooner or later. He's got to find one first. It might be the guy right here on your screen and talking on the other side of this Believe in Chargers podcast. It's the great Lorenzo Neal. We love Lowe. Of course, all Charger fans love Lowe. There's a reason why. LaDainian Tomlinson is in the Hall of Fame, and a big part of it is the path that was paved in front of him. And that path, of course, was paved by Lorenzo Neal. Be sure, please, for all of your Bolt needs, you can get them here at Believe in Chargers, and we would love it if you would subscribe, if you would comment, if you would rate and follow this podcast, and tell all your Charger friends about it. We feel like we're putting good content together, and we'd love for you to spread the word. You can also watch us on Believe TV. That's BLEAV, Believe TV, around the country in airports, and on YouTube. So subscribe to the Believe YouTube channel as well. Read the top stories from Believe at SI.com and follow us across all of our Believe, BLEAV socials. Low, we got a lot of movement in free agency. I was jumped with the news while I was calling a basketball game on Thursday, but I think it's worth kind of getting your take on Keenan Allen as someone who ran in front of LaDainian Tomlinson, who found his way to the Jets. I called games that Phillip Rivers was throwing the ball and he ended up on the Colts. Just your thought of Keenan Allen, who's going to go into the Chargers. He's going to go into the Chargers Hall of Fame. Your thoughts on them moving on from him?
Well, I think that when you look at Keenan and what he did for the organization in this program, I think we'd be remiss to say that, he's not gone too soon, but everyone would love to see him retire a Charger. But it's the way of the NFL. And what we think sometimes when, a player is still playing at a very high level and you look at the numbers and look at what he's done, you're like, wow, how can you move this guy? I think that everyone is sad and disappointed, but at the same sense, it just goes to show you the sphere of influence that Harbaugh has, not just on the coach, not just on the coaching staff, the organization, the community, and football itself. I think the interesting thing about this money, because my thoughts, of course, is just all over the place, and I think that Keenan is a great receiver. You're going to see him do some amazing things, and
Yeah.
for a fourth round pick, it's going to be amazing to see what happens. But is this a time now when you look at players and you look at coaches and you say, before it even starts, before the season even starts, how important is coaching? You and I wanted to have Harbaugh here.
Yeah.
Everyone said it's Harbaugh. So now here he is, Mike Williams gone, Keenan's gone. You look and say, what are you doing to Herbert? Here's a guy that you say is the future of the NFL and one of the most elite quarterbacks, arguably going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks in Charger history. Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Dan Fouts. This guy has a chance to surpass these guys.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, is it going to be because of Harbaugh? Because now you have a coach that's saying, I'm going to bring in the right people. I'm going to put in the right system that's going to merit and make us still be successful without these guys that have been game-changing receivers that you let go. That just goes to show you what Harbaugh believes how football should be played and executed. Not to say that Keenan and those guys couldn't do it. Of course they could. But he's saying, there is my philosophy. I don't need elite necessarily receiver. I need
Right.
guys that are going to buy into my system.
Yeah, so I think there's there's multiple things, and excuse me, I want to make sure I give credit. Jeez, I got all excited to make my
Hang in
point.
there. Hang in
Um,
there.
I think the first thing, look, you see it right down there. It says Matt Money Smith. So let's talk about the money. It's people are as soon as Keenan was traded, now the Chargers got all this money to spend, and I think what people forget is you've got your own players. So when you can do an extension while a player is still on a deal, remember all of that stuff now gets put into this deal. So now you can lower your average annual value because you're tacking on what currently exists. It's an extension, and now that front end works into what the average value is and how it hits your cap. So with 25 million bucks off the books, because they were able to trade Keenan. It's not a release. It's not a restructure. You're talking about getting all that money off the books. You don't have to eat any of it. Rashawn Slater. Look at what Robert Hunt got as a guard. $100 million as a middle-of-the-road guard. Rashawn Slater's going to get a lot of money. do the extension now. Do it right now. Tack it on till, to his first round contract so you can lower the average value when he's going to be making 25 plus $1 million a year to be one of the best left tackles. So Keenan being traded means, okay, now we can get this extension done with Rashawn Slater, and now we can lower our annual cap hit, get a deal done with Josh Palmer, sign him on the cheap before he starts taking all those targets that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were getting as, a guy that's going to be featured considerably more and someone that I believe in, that I think can be a really good receiver in this league. And when you're seeing Calvin Ridley get $92 million from the Titans, right? Like, get Josh Palmer done now. Can you get him for 10 million? Can you get him for that lower range? And now you can go out and find a one, kind of thing. So like that's the thing to remember is it's not just outside free agents. And we'll get into the guys that they've signed because I really like the moves that they've made so far. But I think it's important to remember if you can do your extensions now, you can end up saving some money. Like the what's the famous Andy Reid quote? We want to sign our guys before they know how good they are. Like that's
Right,
what you
right,
got to try to
right.
do in order to make this hard cap thing work. I think the second thing to your point, Lo, with Harbaugh is he wins. His style of football wins. So however he wants to build it and however he wants to play, it's been successful at a very high level every single place that he has been. And look, I think I'll throw it to you with this. J.J. McCarthy's very well could get drafted number 5 overall, and the Chargers could end up trading out of that spot and maybe take those 2 picks from Minnesota, right, at 11 and 23 if the board breaks right. And that would be a huge win for them to get that extra first rounder. What did we talk about? They want double-digit picks. Well, now with the Keenan move, now they got 9. Can they get to 10 and maybe 11? So that's kind of what we're talking. Imagine trading down to 11, and then at 23, someone wants to jump up to get one of those receivers, and now you can get, a second and a third, and now you're turning 23 into like 32 or 34 and whatever, 77. Like that's what we're talking about, amassing picks and populating this roster. But to your point about just kind of wrapping it up on the whole Harbaugh thing, like remember he's got a vision for how he wants to build this. And when you
Yep,
hire, and you said it, when you hired him, you signed up for that vision, and
yep.
that's what this is, and that's what they're doing. So, I know the point I was going to make, and I'm talking way too much, Lo. I'm sorry.
No, no, I enjoy it. Go
Let,
ahead,
let me
please.
let me finish with this. Like people are talking about JJ McCarthy and how, you know, Harbaugh did not allow him to do a lot. He handed the ball off 35 times in the second half against Penn State. Well, they won that game. They won the national championship. So for the people that are all saying, "What are you doing to Herbert? What about Herbert's career?" Well, what do you want? You want Herbert to pile up a bunch of stats and throw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns and not make the playoffs or lose in the first round? Yeah. Or do you want JJ McCarthy, who won the national championship because he's a really good quarterback and he made huge plays in the moments that counted because he's so good and they had to cut him loose a little bit in that game against Alabama in order to get the win, and he's talented enough to do it. Like what? That's the thing I don't get is all these people. Well, you're wasting Justin Herbert. Are you? If you're winning, if you are winning games, are you really wasting Justin Herbert?
No, you're absolutely right, Money. And that's just the people that don't know. You have the outsiders saying, man, but you're getting rid of all of his weapons. What are you doing? You look at around the league and you think about, look at Kansas City. Everyone talks about Mahomes. I'm not comparing the two, but, Justin's not far behind Mahomes. But Mahomes didn't have unbelievable receivers this year.
No.
He didn't have receivers that are all world and making $15, $20 million a year. But what did they just do? They beat the 49ers that had a Debo Samuels, the 49ers that had an Ayuk, Brandon Ayuk. So you had 2 elite receivers, and he just had guys. When you have a quarterback of that elite, and that's what we think Herbert is elite, but now you play good defense. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. What were they able to do? You look at Jones, what he did on defense, disrupting the Niners. When you have a defense that can be elite, and that's what Harbaugh wants. Get his defense elite. Make sure your offense can run the ball and be physical, and make sure you control the ball and control clock and let your quarterback turn it loose when he needs to and when he has to. That's how you win. And that's why they're like, look, because when you're a physical team, what it does, Matt, and you know this, it causes you to stay physical and makes teams say, man, this team can beat us up. The
Yeah.
Niners, the reason why they're physical and you're running the ball 20, 30 times, that's who Harbaugh is. He's going to make sure that he has a physical team. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to build a bully and just give the guy time.
Yeah, just think about the other team in town, the Rams, and Sean McVay is this offensive genius, and Matthew Stafford now is going to go to the Hall of Fame because he won the Super Bowl. McVay wants to run the ball. Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball. Those Mike Shanahan offenses were predicated on running the ball. John Elway did not win a damn thing until Terrell
Right.
Davis showed up, and they got that
Absolutely.
elite back and were able to work all that action off the running game. Like that's that, and I think it gets lost in the fold because Kyle Shanahan is such a good play caller, and he can do it with Jimmy Garoppolo and he can do it with Brock Purdy. So when you have an elite quarterback, I think the idea is you're supposed to throw it all over the yard, and that's how you're supposed to win. No, you're just supposed to win. However you win is how you're supposed to win. And again, it's a proven commodity. It's funny. I enjoy and I appreciate all the people that comment on our videos, and I like to go through them. And obviously, I can't answer all the comments, but I do like being corrected. Like I talked about picking up Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst and how much better that's going to help the run blocking. And someone pointed out, hey, Hayden Hurst was terrible last year in run blocking. I went back and dug it up. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. He was terrible last year. Well, then I come to find out that the guy was playing with a busted up leg the entire season. And so I started digging into a little bit more. And I was like, okay, when he was in Baltimore, he was a pretty darn good run blocker, but things like that I appreciate. So what I'm getting at is there's this one person that loves dinging me for bringing up Andrew Luck, and he's like, "Here we go, number of weeks since we've heard the name Andrew Luck, 0. Well, we're back to 0 again." Because I think it's important to point out because I just feel like with the trade of Keenan and the release of Mike and Austin Eckler is now in Washington and Gerald Everett is in Chicago, all these people are saying, what are you doing to Herbert? I keep trying to remind people, look, it just depends what his personnel is. When they went 12-1 at Stanford, he let Andrew Luck cut it loose for 2+ touchdowns a game for 280 yards a game. He was able to do that because Toby Gerhart had moved on to the NFL. I think it was Stephon Taylor. I can't remember who his back was, but the back wasn't as dominant, and they threw it around a little bit. And so I'm going to steal this from Joel Klatt because he's called a ton of Jim Harbaugh Michigan games for Fox, and he pointed out, as we've pointed out here, Coach Harbaugh is not a wide receiver guy. That's just not. He can throw it around, and that year, I believe he was throwing it around to Kobe Fleener. He was throwing around his tight ends. So that's where the interesting, if you trade back to 11 and 23, Joel in his mock draft gave him Brock Bowers at 11. Maybe that's think about how well Andy Reid has used Travis Kelce when everyone's like, what are you
Right.
doing trading Tyreek Hill? You kidding me?
Right.
You're letting
Right.
Mecole Hardman walk. What do we do? What do you sign him? But Travis Kelce, that's the one guy I got to have. So what if that's kind of what the idea is it's more of a tight end, offensive line, running back, and our guy's still going to get his numbers. He's still going to get his touchdowns. It's just going to look a little different.
Isn't that interesting? People realize that Coach Harbaugh, what did he play again when he was in college? And what
Yeah.
did he play when he was in the pros? He was a quarterback.
Yeah.
So he knows the importance of throwing the ball, but he knows the importance how to win. Quarterbacks know more. They have different meetings. They have more meetings. They meet with the coach more. They are the focal point of how we're going to win. They get the game plan the night before everyone. The quarterback is the driving force. Harbaugh was a quarterback. He is still a quarterback. He understands the importance of it. And I think also, Matt, and I think it's not that the guys were bad, the Everetts and Keenan and all the guys that's gone. But now, for sure, you have to realize it is Herbert's team now. This now, when you remove the guys and remove certain on offense, now it's like, okay, your crutch is gone. We don't have to look now. Look, you're going to be able to go and operate on a level now that you have. We believe in you. And I think this is another move that, hey, Harbaugh's like, look, I have to show this young man that he doesn't need an elite receiver to have success. You don't need one of the best receivers, probably a Hall of Fame type of receiver, to have success.
Right.
This is how we're going to win. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to remove all this, And now, guys, trust me, let's go build. A lot of guys, you've seen it, receivers on the sideline, they're upset. The ball's not throwing. They're not throwing the ball. And they're mad. But Harbaugh wants guys who are going to block downfield, stay in the game, stay active, continue to do it because the opportunity is going to come. He is going to build a team. And that's why I like Harbaugh. I've seen him, like you said, win on every single level. And it's just going to be interesting the way this guy starts to make his cake. He's
Yeah.
getting all the right ingredients.
And I'll say this, and look, I am fine. However they want to do it, I am totally fine if quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's not a good trade, and they're not getting offered enough to trade back, and all of a sudden Marvin Harrison is sitting there at 5, and they want to stick and pick and say, you know what, let's do it, man. Let's get this elite, and I am fine with any of those 3. I am totally fine. I love Malik Neighbors and the explosion, the explosiveness that he has and the juice that he has. I love Marvin Harrison Jr., the size, he is a polished receiver. He is physical. He's smart. The smoothness of Roma Dunze, the fluidity, the battling, the fact that he is a Mike Williams-like, wins every contested catch. Like, I am good with any of those 3 if they want to stick and pick there. I'm fine with Joe Alt if they want to stick and pick there. I'm fine if they want to trade back and take Brock Bowers or Fuaga or Fashanu or any of the Latham. Whatever they want to do, I'm good with. I believe in them. I believe in Joe Ortiz and the way they built it in Baltimore. And I think you can do it with an elite receiver. I think that path I get. It's a receiver league, and a lot of times people say you got to pass to set up the run, that it's kind of reversed itself in the NFL. It used to be run to set up the pass. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can do it either way. It just depends what you have that's dominant. What is the dominant facet of your offense? If it's running the ball, well, then guess what? Running the ball is going to set up the pass. Like Sean McVay, the Rams offense shut down when Todd Gurley got hurt and they could not run the ball. There were no fireworks. Why do you think Kyle Shanahan traded all those picks to go and then signed Christian McCaffrey to a $16 million a year deal? Because he knew, if I can't run the ball, none of this works. So I still think that approach it can. Brock Purdy was in the MVP conversation. Brock Purdy was in
Right.
the MVP conversation through like 12 weeks. So you can do it that way. And I think it's important for people to remember that, like in Baltimore, yes, they struggled to find wide receivers, but they did spend first-round picks on them, and they just happened to miss. Whether it was Perriman, a lot of people still think Bateman can be that guy. Their best receiver was, I don't know, where they took Torrey Smith, but I'm guessing it was probably like 4th, 5th round. Like, you can find them. Last year, Tank Dell, 2nd round. Rasheed Rice, 2nd round. Puka Nacua, 5th round. Like, you can find it. You don't have to take the number 1 guy. And maybe that's where like I said, the trade down option fits, where you have all of these other receivers out there. The 2 guys from Texas, you got Polk from Washington. Thomas is going to go probably a little bit later in the 1st round. What about the Michigan guy, Roman Wilson? I mean, talk about, he's smaller, but he's strong, and nobody snatches it. I mean, snatches it in stride like Wilson does this year. There's options out there, so don't get hyper focused
Tunnel
on,
vision.
yeah, because Keenan's gone and Mike's gone. Look, there's a reason why they're gone. There's a reason why they're gone. And if Mike was able to stay healthy and Mike was on the field for 17 games last year, Mike could have been back, because he's a great receiver. He's not been able to stay healthy, and it's hard to commit $15 million to a guy that has, missed as many games as he has.
Right, and you're right. The durability of some of these guys, and they're still going to be fine. They're going to have great careers. They're having great careers. I think, Matt, if we look at kind of the Chargers, what they did in free agency, but what's the biggest surprise? Are you surprised the run on running backs when you think about where all these running backs went?
Yeah.
They just switch places and all these different things. Where the running back position we talk about is one of the positions that's been getting overlooked. The money looked like was a little bit better than what we thought, and a lot of guys, there was a lot of movement in the running back position.
Yeah, and the Chargers are part of it. They pick up the Gus Edwards, and they get that physical, big back presence that they want. I know they're not done. They only have 2 running backs on the roster, and Isaiah Spiller was inactive for a bunch of games last year. So I know they're not done. Maybe they draft a back. I've said it before. I'll say it again. And it could be, it has an expiration date if he finally gets a deal. But I know he's got an ACL. I know he's coming off an Achilles. I would absolutely take a flyer on J.K. Dobbins. Just get the other Baltimore back. That dude has got juice. He is physical. He's got juice. He fits exactly how they want to run the ball. And he's young. He's young and does not have a lot of carries. And when he was healthy, he was a load. So I would love to see if I would much rather do that than AJ Dillon, who's out there that a lot of people are looking at. But to me, that makes sense. I think taking it back in the draft makes sense. But you're right. For people that don't, that are thinking you ought to throw it all over the yard, well, then why did all of these backs get big deals? Why did Saquon, who can't stay healthy, get a 3-year, $48 million deal? Why did DeAndre Swift, who's a bit limited in facets of the running back position, sign a $30+ million deal in Chicago? Like, look, running backs are important. You got to be able to run the ball to win games, You're not going to close games out if you can't run the ball and run the clock.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Were you surprised that the Chargers made the move? How much was this a Joe move to say, let's go bring this Baltimore back? Because I know him up close and personal. You think that was played a huge factor?
I think it helps, and look who they just signed, to play center to take over for Corey Linsley. Bradley Bozeman, who Joe Ortiz was part of the front office that drafted him. Now they let him go in free agency, and I think that's another thing to remember. Don't forget about Joe Ortiz's introductory press conference where he talked about compensatory picks, how important they were. That goes into this. Bradley Bozeman was cut, so there's no compensatory pick there, that you have to relinquish. Now they signed Denzel, whose contract expired, but so that then costs them a compensatory pick. And please, Denzel, stop hitting people so hard, man. I know you got the muscle. I know you bring a load, but Denzel hits so hard, he knocks himself out the game. Like, someone's got to tell Denzel, I know you're the strongest guy on the field, pound for pound. We all know, but don't hit so hard that you knock yourself out of these games. Dial it back just 10% and stay on the field for 17 because you're a damn good linebacker, but you keep getting hurt because you hit so hard.
Right.
But yeah, I think Bradley Bozeman, there is something there with familiarity. I'm sure I would be floored, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but I hope they don't listen to him. I don't know how many of Jim Harbaugh's Michigan players he wants them to draft, but it's like, let's slow down. There's a lot of colleges out there. There's a lot of great players. I understand you love your guys, but let's make sure we kind of do this the right way, and maybe one of them gets drafted and maybe it doesn't. But so I do think there's something with familiarity. The work ethic. You know how they are in the room. You know what type of player. And when you feel like you've got those players, and especially if you're trying to establish a culture of toughness and a culture of winning, and you feel like, hey, Gus Edwards is a winner. When we were in Baltimore and we needed to run the clock and I needed to get 2 yards and he got me 3, and I needed to get 3 yards and he got me 2, or 4 yards and he got me 3. What's the Leroy Horde? Hey, you need 2 yards, I'll get you 3. You need 4 yards, I'll get you 3.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
So those things. So I do think there is something to that. But on offense, I love the Will Dissly signing. Get a run blocking tight end. Like I said, I like the flyer on Hayden Hurst. He's a first-round pick. Super talented, big tight end that was banged up last year. And remember, that Carolina O-line was a mess. I went back and watched a lot of those run blocks from Hayden Hurst. Dude was left on an island to block defensive ends. A tight end should never be able to block a defensive end. If you can, you shouldn't be a defensive end in this league. You should not be an edge, or edge, as we like to call him now. You better be able to bust up a tight end if you're an edge and you got one-on-one. And a lot of those run blocking grades were predicated on him going up against a guy that's 40 pounds heavier than he is, and it's just coming right into his chest. So I like those two signings. On the offensive side, I get what they're doing. They're getting tougher. They got a pro in Bozeman who just got handed an $18 million deal last year or 2 years ago from the Panthers, so we know he excelled there. And at least you have that settled now, which is why I think in the draft, the O-line is a very real possibility. You've got 3 of them. I don't know if they feel like they've got 5. I think they feel really good about Zion Johnson, Rashawn Slater, and now Bradley Bozeman. I don't know if they feel as confident in Jamari and Trey. And so I think that's kind of what and you need depth. So I think that's where that shows up. By the way, tournament is here. BetOnline is your bracket headquarters for the season. Best bracket contest out there, plus odds, lines, info on every game and every round, right up to the national championship. You can access the most up-to-the-minute wagering information anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices, and even track your bracket real-time all the way through the tournament. We'd love it if you headed over to BetOnline today to get in on all the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, and you get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV, BLEAV, and the promo code BetOnline. The game starts here. So,
Who do you got? Who do you got? March Madness money. Is there a dark horse you got? Are you watching the tournament this last week?
yeah,
Watching this upsets? Watching Purdue go down, and just watching all the top teams get the. It's always like that. Is there
yeah.
any team that you think, okay, this is the one?
From the Big Ten, I think Illinois really is a very good team. They're a very good, very deep, veteran-laden team. So they won the big. That's what I was doing. I was calling the Big Ten tournament. So I do believe in Purdue. Edie is very hard to contend with. 7'4" and very good passing out of double teams. Last year they had these two freshman guards, Lawyer and Smith. This year they're sophomores, and you can tell there's just a huge jump in comfortability there. So I think Purdue could make a run as well from the Big Ten. Those are the two. I would say if you want to be entertained, do yourself a favor and watch Keisei Tominaga from Nebraska. He is Steph Curry, style. He'll launch it from 30 feet. He's got all the flair, all the swag. He's a lot of fun to watch. So do yourself a favor and watch Nebraska and watch Keisei, because he's a blast to keep an eye on. So there, from the Big Ten, there's what I have to offer, having just called all those games
There
out
we
in
go. I'll get
Minneapolis.
on Bet Online and check that
Yeah,
out. Anywho,
yeah. Back to the
what's
Chargers.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think also, Lo, that look, Mike Williams is now a Jet. They signed Tyron Smith. If he's healthy, he's one of the best left tackles in the game. They bring in, did they bring? No, they didn't bring in Morse. He went down to Jacksonville. I can't remember who they brought in to play center, but they brought in a center, so they fortified their offensive line. Then they signed Mike Williams. Basically, what they've done is they've taken flyers on guys that can't stay healthy. So, I think it's that I get it. Aaron Rodgers 40 plus. You've got to win now. And if that's what you got to do, you got to roll the dice, because you're going to have to get players that are ready to go now, not be developed, that are young, and you're trying to kind of work them in and cross your fingers and hope that they can be great pros. So I get what Joe Douglas is doing over with the Jets, and I get why Mike Williams would take the flyer there, because he's got Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. He's got Garrett Wilson on the other side. He's got Breece Hall in the backfield. So there's going to be one-on-one opportunities for him, and we know that's what he excels in. So I am not surprised at all that he decided to go there instead of come back and hear what the Chargers, had to pitch him. In terms of what,
How do you
go
feel?
ahead.
How do you feel that Philly did? If you think about what Philly added, Saquon, do you think they're when you look at a team in the NFC, does that put them back where they need to
Yeah.
be? What do you think about?
Yeah, I think so. I think they made sure, look, they lost a piece on the offensive line. They plugged it right away. Howie's great. He's so good at it, and I think, again, I think that just speaks to our point. This is a team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, struggled last year. Why? Because they got away from what they do best. Jalen Hurts was not running it as much. DeAndre Swift had some good games, but they weren't as effective of a running team, and that affected the passing game. Even though they have these incredible weapons, and Dallas Goedert at tight end, and obviously A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, it like the run game just wasn't quite right. And so Jalen Hurts wasn't quite right. So that, I think, speaks to what Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh are trying to do. And that's, hey, we got to make sure we get the front fixed, and we got to make sure that we get the running game going in order to get this thing to work, to let one hand, wash the other. So I think that's probably why they went out and said, look, we'll take the flyer. Even though Saquon's been hurt, we'll take the flyer on him, and we'll see if we can get our running game going here. I look at the AFC, Low, and I just think about Derrick Henry in Baltimore is going to be a nightmare. I don't think there's any question about that. As far as what the Steelers are doing, look, they want to run the ball. They want to run the ball with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. That's what they want to do. And so I think they probably pitched Russ on the idea of, we're going to do this like you did it in Seattle. It's going to be a lot of run, and you're going to have opportunities to throw the ball down the field based on how well we're running the ball to guys like George Pickens, and that's kind of what I'm guessing that the pitch was. And I think that's the idea. Look, it's weird to me that they said that Russell's the starter. I don't know why they would do that. I would just hold an open competition with Justin Fields. But I think maybe what I would read into that is it's maybe a message to their fans like, hey, I know this guy was a former first round pick, but don't get too excited about this. We're bringing him in because the styles mesh. He's a guy that holds onto the ball too long, that can run. He's a little bit like a young, Russell Wilson without the ability to throw it nearly as well or process nearly as well as Russell could. So I think it's just a natural fit as a backup. Um, and so, I think that's important to remember. People that were complaining about the value for Keenan, you only got a fourth round pick for a guy that only played, 12 games last year and had 1,100 yards and 108 catches. Well, yeah, he's got 1 year left on his deal. And teams are like, I don't really want to extend a guy that's going to turn 32 in April, knowing what the receiver market is, knowing this guy turned down a pay cut with the Chargers that would have tacked extra years onto the back end at 32. So what's he going to want from us? Let's just let this 1 year ride out. And that's not worth a third. That's not worth a second. That's worth a fourth. Same thing with Justin Fields. You can't pick up that 50-year option on that guy.
No,
Not for a guy that took
no.
55 sacks in a year. Not for a guy that's been, rated 28th in quarterback efficiency since he's been in the league. Like, you can't pick up $25 million. So that's why he only got a sixth. And I only bring that up, Lo, just to point out that's why the Chargers got a fourth for Keenan. He's going to
Right.
turn 32 in April. It's a 1 year deal for $23 million. And clearly, if you want to extend him, he's expecting a huge payday. And I believe in him. I believe he can continue to be great.
Of course, he can still
But
play. Why would Chicago? Why do you think Chicago would do that, or why Keen? Do you think this was a deal his agent just said, "Let's just go get this money"? Because you're going to Chicago, you're going to a place that's probably not going to win. You don't know who's going to be your quarterback necessarily, and if it's a young guy, can you go through that process? Are you going to have a pay cut after the year? What was your thought process on
yeah,
that?
I don't think he had a say in it. For me, for the Chargers, I'm guessing that they were just like, "Hey, you want to offer us a fourth? We'll take it." Why did Chicago do it? I think you want your quarterback to succeed. You want Caleb Williams to be excited about coming there. That's why you signed DeAndre Swift. They already got their they got their tackles the last 2 years in the draft, so they've got their two tackles. Cole Kmet's a great tight end that we just haven't heard about. Like, DJ Moore is one of the best receivers in the league. So you've got your legit number one receiver in DJ Moore. You add Keenan to be that gotta have it third down guy. You've got Cole Kmet, full service tight end. You bring in Gerald Everett as that second tight end. Like, you're dropping a guy that we all think, at least I do, can be a special player in Caleb Williams. I think he could be a very special quarterback. And you're giving him the opportunity to really succeed, to have those easy, hey, we know Keenan's going to get open. We know he's going to get open and he can catch a ton of balls. And if you're paying too much attention to Keenan, DJ Moore is exceptional. He is an exceptional receiver. So Caleb was going to, I think Keenan, look, we know, look at what Herbert did his rookie year, right? With Keenan. I mean, my
Oh,
gosh, he
oh, yeah.
went crazy. It was one
Right.
of the best rookie seasons we've ever had. And it's funny because you kind of look at how Herbert was dropped in and it's almost like the Bears are looking at that. Like, okay, so Herbert got dropped into this thing. Now, he did not have the offensive line. It was a brutal offensive line he was playing behind. He was able to overcome that. But he had Austin Eckler in the backfield. He had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, legit number one receivers. He had Hunter Henry as his tight end, and he excelled. As a rookie, he excelled. And, it came down to the final couple weeks where they darn near, made a push to get into the playoffs. So I think that's what the Bears were looking at. And on Keenan's side, he just wanted his money, which is fine. You have earned that right.
Right. Yeah.
You've earned
Right.
the right
Yeah,
to say, I
man.
don't want to take a pay cut, but just know when you make that position, you're going to have to move. They're probably going to say, okay, well, Khalil just had a career year as well, and he took a haircut. He was willing to help us out. Joey's incredibly talented, and he took a big haircut, $7 million. He took a cut on. So I can't bring you back and say, yeah, hey guys, thanks for taking the pay cut, but we're not going to do that with Keenan. Like, you can't do that. You got to play, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with Keenan saying, I don't care. I'm 32. I want my $23 million, and he got it, and that's great. I do not begrudge him that at all. I'm just saying I understand it from the Chargers standpoint that they're like, well, yeah, okay, if you're not going to take a cut, well, we got to move on.
Real quick, man. I know
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
running out of time, but get into the charge. Get into the defense for me. Tell me what was the thought process about keeping these guys intact. When you're talking about Cleo and you're talking about Bosa, you and I at the beginning of the season. I mean, end of the season before Harbaugh got here, saying, "Hey, one of these guys are out." Me and you were saying, "Hey, if you had to flip a coin, who's out?" But both of them are
Yeah,
still here.
and again, it goes back to what we did that day when we talked about what Michigan's putting in the league. So, how important are edges to Jesse Minter's scheme? How important is pass rush? And now, when you keep all three, we've seen it. So, our friend Daniel Popper over at The Athletic posted it. It's unfortunate because it was such a small sample size. 44 snaps is all that Thule, Khalil Mack, and Joey played together. That's it. 44 snaps.
Wow.
11 sacks on those 44 snaps. So, yeah,
Whoa.
exactly. So, I'm sure Jesse Minter looked at it and said,
Crazy.
"Hey, if we can keep this, if we can take the flyer, let's get Ben Herbert with Joey, let's get him with our strength guy, and let's figure out why he's not been able to stay healthy. Because if we can keep him out there, 11 sacks on 44 snaps
44
together,
snaps.
that you can rotate those three guys. And again, going back to what I'd said to start this, David Ajabo, Aiden Hutchinson, Kwity Paye, like Michigan is putting pass rushers into the league year after year. So that's an important position, clearly, and one that excels and they develop. So that's why I think you ended up getting both of those guys back. Um, Mike was always going to be released because of the injuries. It was just 20 million bucks, a $32 million cap hit. Instead of saving 20 million by letting him go, you just couldn't. It's too hard to extend him, and it was just easier to save the 20 million bucks by letting him go because of all the injuries. So I think that's why it lined up that way. And now, Troy Dye is a special teamer that Ryan Ficken vouched for, I'm sure, coming over from Minnesota. He loses a couple guys. He loses Eamon Ogbongbemiga to the Bears, so he needs kind of that elite special teamer, to pair with Nick Neiman and Dan Henley and these guys to make sure the special teams stay intact. So that's what Troy Dye was. Poona Ford's big body. You got to get bodies inside. So, that's where that goes, kind of that bigger body. Morgan Fox, more of your pass rusher inside. But I think that's the other thing too, Lo, is you bring Joey back, and now you help out the interior of the line as well, because Thule and Joey can move. They can play in. They can play out. So I think that's what you do by bringing Joey back, is you then bolster the interior of your line as well when all of that went away in the offseason. So now you got Tito Abonia, you got Morgan Fox, you signed Poona Ford, you've got Thule who can play in, or Joey that can play in, as you switch that whole thing around. And it helps you, like we said, trenches, lines. These guys need the
Yep.
lines to be right, and
Building
I
in the
think it does
trenches.
that by bringing Joey back.
Oh, no question. You build in the trenches, offense and defense, and you see that's what the Chargers are doing. Harbaugh understands fundamentals of football. You win and you lose in the trenches, and you build in the trenches, and that's what they're doing. I can't wait to see what they do here in the
Yeah.
draft, find out if they're going to trade back, trade up. What are they going to do to continue to solidify this Chargers offense and defense? Man, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think the biggest news is, 9 picks. They probably want 10 or 11. So with the Keenan trade, they got an extra fourth. Now they got 9. And clearly Minnesota, I don't think they traded next year's, they traded the future to get a second first rounder because they really want to pick 23. They want to move up. And maybe it'll be to number 3 if the Patriots want to move back. Maybe it'll be to number 4, which I could see if the Cardinals want to move back, or maybe the Chargers are able to snatch both of those up, and it's to number 5 to get that fourth quarterback. But it certainly feels like 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 5. That's the way this draft is going to shake out now, and I think that bodes well for the Chargers, because either someone's going to trade, a few extra picks to get up to take that quarterback at 5, or they're going to be sitting there at number 5 with their choice of 3 super hyper elite wide receivers. And if they choose to stick and take one, great. With the contracts that are being handed out to wide receivers, I wouldn't be surprised if someone's willing to trade up and give up some future and an extra pick in this draft as well, to get one of those guys as well. So I think it works out really well with Minnesota clearly stating their intention. I believe that they want to trade up to get a quarterback. I do believe it helps quite a bit for the Chargers to be sitting at number 5. Let's wrap up with this, though. We love Cut, KUTT. It's a way for you to bet your friends on anything. And with all the bracket madness that's going on right now, maybe there is a way for you to build a game on your own with your pals. whatever it may be. Maybe you want to go in the driveway and shoot a bunch of threes and you want to get that thing put together. Cut helps you do that. It is peer-to-peer social betting. It is legal in over 40 states, customizable odds, tracking capabilities, an entire social network with group chats, user profiles, rewards. All payments are included. No need for Venmo. So whatever you're looking to bet your pals on, your buddies on, through the course of the madness that's happening right now, do it through Cut. They make it easy. Use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV. That gets you a 10% welcome deposit bonus. Don't forget the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV. Cut. Put your money where your mouth is. I'm assuming things are going to change by the time we do this next week. We'll have some new players. We've continued. Christian Fulton's coming out, former first-round pick at corner. We know they need depth at corner as we talk right now. He is coming out tomorrow. So we're doing this on a Wednesday. He's coming out on a Thursday, and we'll see if they have a new corner by the time we do this next week. But still quite a few players out there. A lot of talent. We talked about J.K. Dobbins. Justin Simmons is still out there looking for a gig. So there are plenty of players. Josh Reynolds at the wide receiver position still out there at the time that we're doing this. So still plenty of players for the Chargers to help build some depth. And remember, got to take care of their own as well. But it's been a fun week, an interesting week, I should say. Not necessarily fun. Don't ever want to see a Hall of Famer leave your team. But it's been an interesting week in how they're trying to put this thing together by moving on from Keenan.
Oh, no question. It's been great, man. It's always great working with you. And you understand these free agents, they want to find a new home before that draft. So it's going to be a second wave, like you alluded to, because that draft comes, you're like, I want to make sure that I got a home.
No doubt, Lo. Appreciate you. Appreciate it every week. Appreciate all you people that download, that like, that subscribe, that comment. However you do it, pass the word, please. Believe in Chargers. Get us on the YouTube channel. Get us on our YouTube channel, the Believe channel there, BLEAV. Get us on the podcast. However you do it, we, again, can't thank you enough for listening and subscribing and continuing to allow us to produce this content for you. We hope it's entertaining you, and we'll be back next week.